Hi guys, welcome back to Football United TV. After a long break, we're back with the F.I.T.A show, Football in the Americas. I'm excited for this one. We're gonna give you a rundown of everything that's been going on in South America lately, because we missed a couple of shows. So we have some catching up to do.
Yeah.
So stay tuned right after the intro. All right. Welcome back. So, if you watch this show, you definitely know Johnny. I would never dare do a F.I.T.A show without him. But tonight, we not only we don't have just one of the Golazo kids, guys. We have both of them. You might have seen Mateo when we spoke about Central America, Caribbean football. He's back tonight to talk about some South American football overall. How are you guys doing?
Hey Charlie, glad to be back. We were in a little month and a half long hiatus, so there's lots to talk about, and I'm excited to get to it.
Thank you
Absolutely,
for the
man.
happy to be here. Awesome. Thank you for the invitation again.
It's your home, my man. You're always invited. Always invited. So let's get started. We're gonna try to talk about 12 leagues. We might not pull it off. So let's start with the most important one. I'm gonna share my screen because we're gonna start with the most important competition in the continent, second most important in the world, the Libertadores. Just give me 1 second here because I still suck at technology, even though I've hosted like 100 shows already. So just give me 1 second. Okay, here it is, Libertadores.
What kit do you have
So
on? Just curious. I can't really see it.
mine?
Fluminense?
Yeah,
Oh,
of course.
because like the colors are super dark.
Oh yeah, it's probably my room's lighting. Yeah, but this kit is a tad darker than Fluminense usually is, though. I feel like the what's Grenai in English? Maroon?
Maroon.
Maroon, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the maroon's usually like one or two shades lighter than this, and the green. No, the green's actually close to what I'm used to seeing. Anyway,
We'll probably talk
I
about it
grew up
again.
with Adidas, right? Like this is not a fun time for me to be wearing kits, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So the Libertadores, the quarterfinals were just like the last games. Well, no, there's still one to go tonight in 1.5 hours. But the first three games were played these last couple of days. Some big games. Mainly the two like Brazilian matches here. Who wants to start?
I can start off talking about Corinthians and Flamengo.
Right.
I think this game, I don't think anyone expected this good of a result for Flamengo playing in São Paulo.
Or host.
Corinthians is a team that has been getting results but hasn't been playing great. And so I think everyone expected Corinthians to play at home very defensively against a Flamengo that has been in form in the past 3 weeks or so, a little more. But it didn't work. I think I think the first half an hour of the game was pretty solid from Corinthians, and then Flamengo scored their goal with 10 minutes to go. And after the 1-0, Flamengo just dominated the whole game, got a second goal in the beginning of the second half, and then had more chances to score a third goal than Corinthians to get one back. So it's looking very tough for Corinthians. I think their best chance was to at least get a tie at home and then leave it all for that one game in Rio and see what happens. But they weren't able to, and I think it's highly improbable that they win by a 3 goal margin or 2 goal margin and take it to penalties in Rio. Not because I think the rosters are that far apart. They are, but not that much. But just because of the form that these teams have been in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, Flamengo definitely picked up form. Like they started the year really poorly, right? Like it took them a long like Flamengo's been unstable for a couple of years, but it took them a really long time this season to actually like get things rolling. And do you feel like Pedro's been fantastic for a couple of months now? Do you feel like that has anything to do with Flamengo being so much better
Yeah,
than they were?
I think there's a, I think there's a kind of finally like Flamengo in big part because of Bruno Henrique's injury. There's like, okay, we're breaking away from that team,
Yeah,
from 2019. So I think that finally allows naturally the next best player to go into the lineup, which is Pedro, and they've managed to fit them. But I think that like his inclusion into the team, it's not it's not like by coincidence that they've been able to break from that mold and now grow with like a different model, playing a different way with different players in a completely different system. So I think that only in a way losing their best player helped them almost, made them find kind of solutions elsewhere, and that happens sometimes.
yeah. By the way, guys, if you don't know, like these both Corinthians and Flamengo have former Chelsea and Arsenal players. David Luiz plays for Flamengo and Willian plays for Corinthians. So two teams that definitely invest in like bigger stars. Like Corinthians is trying to make their way back up. They're one of the biggest clubs in the country for sure, but they're really far away from mainly Palmeiras, who like for Mateo's happiness, like it's definitely the best team in the continent by far. But they're also behind Atletico and Flamengo. They're trying to make that gap smaller. But I think I'm ready to move on from that one. I doubt that they're gonna like. I hope Corinthians does a madness there and brings this back, but I doubt it. And Flamengo's looking dangerous in this Libertadores. Like they're picking up pace at the right time.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to the matchup that they would get if they advance?
Well, let's
Absolutely.
talk about how that quarterfinal went, and then we can kind of project, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't watch this game, but I read a little bit about it and I heard it was wild. So, John, you please interject me. Vélez and Talleres plays against the winner of Corinthians and Flamengo. And it's funny enough, this weekend I was just like out of curiosity looking at how they're doing in the local league. And they both have 9 points in 11 or 12 matches, something really, really bad. They're both doing really poorly in the league. Um, no one kind of really knows how they got there. Their fans don't even really know how they got there. And Vélez was winning comfortably. I didn't watch this, but they were winning comfortably 2-0. Talleres draws in the last couple minutes of the match, and then in the last gasp of the game, Vélez scores 3-2. I forget the name of the player who scored. It's number 11, but he's been the player that has scored. Yeah, he's been the player that has scored like the key goals for Vélez to advance, because John can obviously, I think, can tell this in more detail, but like the way that Vélez advanced, not only from the group stage, but then how they beat River Plate was like incredibly dramatic, and is why we love this competition so much, right? Is because of these stories. And Vélez is a game away from a semi-final of a Copa Libertadores that they've been kind of advancing in a way that they don't even know how they're there. So it's why we love this game and why we love this tournament.
Yeah, Vélez only made it out of the group stage because on the last round they played against Estudiantes that was already qualified and played that match with a bunch of reserves. Made it through in that last round. Got River Plate in the round of 16, which was seen as one of the favorites to the title. Won 1-0 at home in a game that everyone felt could have ended 3-4-0 for Vélez. Hit the post a couple times. Goalie made a couple miraculous saves. Won 1-0, which was still obviously a good result, but it seemed like it wouldn't be enough to play against River away. The away match against River Plate dominated, but without creating a lot of clear chances. Had a very, very like this, like they had a goal disallowed, River Plate, that up to this day is up for discussion on whether that should have been disallowed or not. The game ended 1-0. I mean 0-0. Vélez went through, and now they won at home again, the way that Mateo described it. And again, I feel like they have a sense that maybe a 1-goal difference isn't enough to play against Talleres away, but they've proven to be a team that you can't discount, and really anything could happen. And whichever one of these teams make it to the semifinal, they're definitely going to be the underdog.
Huge underdogs. Like it's
Yeah, Vélez, just for historical context, Vélez won a Libertadores in '94. They reached the semifinal in 2010, I believe, the year that that Santos won. That was 10 or 11. Yeah. But they were the semifinalists against Peñarol that then went to the final against Santos.
I think it's 10, where Neymar won, right? Like Neymar won.
2010. Yeah. Vélez was the semifinalist against Peñarol that then lost to Santos. Talleres is already like the furthest they've ever been in this tournament, so they can already be happy with what they're doing. So that's pretty much it. That's those are the two underdogs. Whoever goes through from there is going to be a surprise.
And before we move on, because we have to mention it, Charlie, sorry, but Boca lost 3-0 to a team that has the same colors as Flamengo this weekend. Lost against Patronato 3-0. So to the imagination of the people watching, or for us to discuss, how much would Boca against Flamengo be today? Huh? Something to imagine, because we just passed on penalties, and Boca was eliminated from the last two Libertadores to Brazilian teams without losing the game. So
yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to what's like arguably the biggest game in the continent, right? In Atletico and Palmeiras right now. Like if not the biggest one, like you put Flamengo instead of Atletico, it's probably that. But right before we move on, we do have some movement here in the comments, so let me just read them out. Big up Solo Legend. Evening all. Matthew, my man, welcome back. This is one of my good friends here, King Said. Big up the panel. He likes the Libertadores. For me, after CL, this tournament's the most entertaining tournament in the world. I would agree. I think these guys actually think this is the most entertaining tournament in the world. I'm pretty sure they like the Libertadores better than they like the CL. Which doesn't, like, I'm a Fluminense and an Arsenal fan. I kind of hate both. I wish I liked them a little more. But anyway, let's move on to this. I didn't quite watch the game, but I know that Palmeiras was losing 2-0, right? Like, so this was a more than decent comeback. Atletico hasn't been magnificent whatsoever this season, but they do have an amazing team. Hulk is still one of the best players in the continent. How did you feel like going to this game, Mateo? And what you think of the game itself? And how confident are you that you're gonna move on?
I was super, super nervous. I'm the type of person that like can't function when these games are around the corner. So the day of is always hard. Luckily, it was like very busy. So I would have taken a draw before the match started any day of the week, 10 out of 10 times, right? So I want to start by saying that as a fan, I would have taken a draw in a heartbeat. So when the game starts, the context from both teams is quite the opposite of what it was last year. It's important to mention that these teams played last year. Palmeiras won on away goals, so it was 0-0 and 1-1. And now we don't have away goals, and they draw again. So Atlético Mineiro has been outspending everyone in the country trying to get this elusive title. And Palmeiras comes in as one of the most consistent teams in the last couple of years. So it was surprising to see how the script flipped from last year, right? So, but when we went to play, Atlético Mineiro played way better than Palmeiras in the first half. It could have been 2-3, 4-0. There were some ridiculous chances missed. Palmeiras actually scores first. VAR calls it back because of a couple centimeters.
Oh, I think we lost Mateo.
Okay, yeah. I always think it's me, but yeah, we did.
Yeah. I'll send him a little message telling him to
It's all good. We have, I think this is a Brazilian here. What a resenha. How do I translate resenha? This is so Brazilian.
Banter? No, not banter. I
No,
don't know.
it's not. It's not like we're not.
Chat, like storytelling.
Yeah. What a.
It's hard.
Okay, I'm assuming this is one of your friends, Johnny, because John has to mention his
Yeah,
high school goal scoring stint.
he knows. He's all facts.
Yo, guys, Johnny is a baller. Baller,
Yes,
baller, baller. Great footballer.
he is. He
Anyway,
really is.
So
Mateo,
Mateo,
we have
sorry, we
lost you.
lost you there for a second.
Yeah.
You were talking. We lost you when you were talking about the goal that got disallowed by VAR.
Yeah, so then Atletico keeps pressuring in the last minute of the first half. They get a penalty, fair penalty called by VAR. They score 1-0, and the feeling was that it could have been way more than 1-0. Marcos Rocha, made the penalty. It's worth mentioning. I think it's one of his worst games playing for Palmeiras ever. He did really bad. He was suffering with Keno playing on his side. Keno is a hard guy to mark, so he was suffering with that. So as the game goes on, first half starts 2-0 Atletico Mineiro, an own goal, but it's kind of unfair to see an own goal because Hulk would have scored that as a tap in if he wasn't there. So it's 2-0, and then Palmeiras just seemed dead in the water. They weren't creative, they weren't doing anything. I think we had one shot on target, and then out of nowhere there's a free kick, and then Mr. Special Magical. I mean, it's you'll run out of adjectives to describe the season this guy's having. Is Gustavo Scarpa. He hits a free kick. It almost goes in directly. It hits the post, and then it hits our defender who had scored the own goal, and 2-1, and we're back in the game. And that goal meant everything because the fans kind of the energy came down. The team didn't expect that. They were playing so much better, and to get a goal scored like that. And then in the last minute again, Scarpa with his, magical free kick corner skills puts an extremely dangerous ball in the box. Dudu finds a header. He had missed an incredible chance 2 minutes earlier, but the shortest guy on the team finds a header, diving header, puts it back in the middle of the box, and Danilo scores 2-2. And it's surreal. I was talking to John an hour before. I'm like, I really haven't processed what happened. It was surreal to have come back into that game against that team away from home. It's crazy. And now it's 2-2, even game. And Palmeiras extends a 20-game unbeaten streak away from home in the Copa Libertadores, which is
Jesus.
unbelievable
Yeah.
to think of. It's been 3 years since their last defeat against San Lorenzo.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
man. Just
from
some
the-
context, guys. He's surprised because Dudu's like 4'2". Like he's a really short dude, so scoring a header, like it's not common. And we're gonna talk about this way more in depth 2 weeks from now. Where we're gonna be talking about the transfers coming in to South America and going to Europe from South America as well. But if you're a Forest fan, like I don't think I've ever met one. I hope to one day. But if you're a Forest fan, Scarpa, this amazing player that I hate with all my heart, like he's heading to Forest in December. So in January, sorry. So that's definitely something for you guys to be excited about.
Yeah. And I just wanted to, so in the perspective of Atlético Mineiro, I think they also would have taken the tie, to be honest. Because at this particular moment, Palmeiras is doing a lot better. They just got a coach that they're very familiar with and who is very familiar with this specific roster and these specific players, but he just arrived 2 weeks ago, if that, a week ago. And playing against the best team, like you said, best team in the continent at home, I think sort of like Corinthians with Flamengo, like I think they would have taken the tie at home and then see what happens. Then it's just 90 minutes. Anything can happen in the next game. But I think the context of the game changed that, right? Because once you're up 2-0 with 30 minutes to go, a tie seems like feels more like a loss than a win. But it doesn't really change the plan. I guess they're still alive. They could very well. I think it's very hard for them to win, but they could very well tie again. There's no away goals in the Copa Libertadores anymore, so this game could potentially go to penalties. And Palmeiras, out of the 6 last penalty shootouts, only won once. So So they're still alive. I think Palmeiras regained a lot of momentum by tying this game, but I don't think it's over yet.
The last
No,
thing I
no.
mentioned of that game is just how impressive it is for a team to, in that situation, being 2-0 down, with their backs against the wall, to like just calmly, just draw the game. Like, I heard someone say something today that says like they believe that they're going to draw the game, or win the game, even though if they're not going to do it. Like they believe in themselves more than anyone else. So I think that's like so contrasting to like Corinthians against Flamengo, where it's 2-0 Flamengo and the game's done, like the game's over.
Yeah,
So it's crazy to like how many years did it take Palmeiras to get there? It took years and years and really and losses that hurt, and time and energy, and winning and losing Libertadores. And now it's like it's easy to say and see this team as like the finished product, but it's been 6-7 years to get there.
yeah, and I
And
think it goes beyond just like they believing they can tie. It's they believe they can tie. They know how the coach wants them to do it, and they believe that that's the best method to get there. So when they're down 2-0, there's no desperation. There's no let's just kick the ball forward and see what happens. No, they stick to the game plan no matter what, and because they believe and they know that that's how it's gonna get done, and it does. So
most times, yeah, it
it's
does.
very impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
is.
agree.
Well, we're eventually going to be talking about this more in depth in the future, but I mean, unless you convince Pep to come to Palmeiras, I can only assume you guys are going to suffer when Abel leaves. Like
Yeah,
he's the best manager, like by far, in the country. So losing him and I know Scarpa hasn't always been your best player, but he is this season. So losing the manager, like he's supposed to leave in the end of the season, right?
With
no,
Luxemburgo, he was almost loaned out, right?
he was almost sold for like 500,000 euros to Almeria in the second division of
Wow,
Spain. Like he was
wow.
that close. Abel has contract until the end of 2024, so there's 2 more years.
Okay. Oh, I
Yeah,
thought he was gonna like leave after this one.
it's this season and two more.
Wow.
So there's a little
Okay.
bit more suffering, hopefully, for you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's not like contracts are always respected,
yeah,
right?
I
But
know, I know.
No, yeah. If Juventus wants Abel Ferreira, they'll take him tomorrow. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
I think he's the one of the only, or maybe the only coach to have a transfer fee paid for him twice, not once but twice, which is interesting.
yeah,
All right. Well, we got to
so
wrap up the Libertadores because
Yeah,
otherwise, like, we're not going to be touching the other leagues. What do you guys expect of Atlético Paranaense and Estudiantes? That game's happening in an hour.
yeah,
You guys want to start
Atlético's
watching it?
playing at home. So Atlético, they're coached by Filipão, Big Phil, Felipe Scolari, which is notorious for being a defensive coach, but they've only really been very defensive when playing away. They haven't really been that way at home.
Hmm.
So, and I'm not sure what to expect from Estudiantes because they lost their number. They sold their number 10 to Pachuca del Petre, and they still seem to have maintained their form in the Argentinian league.
Yeah.
So,
from
so
what
I'm
I've
not sure. I really think this game is 50-50. I don't know if Mateo has a different sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's 50. I would say 55-45, for the only reason that in the Copa Libertadores, when you look at that patch with 6 Libertadores here, it's different. It's different. So 55-45, from what I've gathered from a couple of Argentinian friends, Estudiantes is exactly what you would expect a Scolari team to play like. So
Okay.
I'm interested to see how that's going to be like, because from what I've heard, they're a hard hitting team, going to make fouls to stop the game. Very strong on crosses, centers, and dead balls. So I'm curious to see how this is. I think it's wide open. Honestly, I can't wait for the game to start. I'm going to be glued to the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they have Boselli up top. That's a great striker. I'm a fan,
Yeah.
and Yeah, just quick correction. It's 4 Libertadores, not 6. But
Four.
Still very impressive. But anyway, like whoever goes through, like everyone assumes that they're gonna have a really tough time in the semifinals. No matter who goes through between Palmeiras and Atlético, they're gonna be favorites against Atlético Paranaense or Estudiantes, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Besides,
but not by a lot.
no, not by
you
a
don't
lot.
think? Okay, okay.
I
I
think
like in my mind like that's a big difference. Like if Atlético Paranaense plays Palmeiras, like if I'm a Palmeiras fan, I'm not sweating too much.
I mean, we lost 2-0 to them at home the last time we played, so I would sweat a little bit, honestly.
That's a good point.
They one thing I think is worth mentioning, besides Scolari being again in the quarterfinal of a Libertadores, which by the way he has never not been in a quarterfinal. Every participation he has, it's kind of like
Wow.
Mourinho in the Champions League kind of romance. I think it's good to mention that Fernandinho's playing for Atlético Paranaense, which is
Yes.
really cool to see. He came back to his childhood club. We'll talk about another guy that came back to his childhood club too, but that's a kind of a lesser known, and you can hate the guy because he really has effed up in the national team, but his quality is absurd. And then seeing him playing in Brazil, even at this age, I love seeing it. Like I appreciate number 5 so much, and just to see him, how intelligent he is, how he moves. And one thing I loved seeing about him is like he already came into like the Latin American soccer context immediately, already being like malandro, already like getting fouls, screaming at the referee. I loved that. He came in,
It's like he never left.
that English Premier League lord that he was in England with Guardiola disappeared in a heartbeat. So you're a great team, man.
Fernandinho is such a funny character in football for me, my man. He might very well be the best player that I've ever hated for the Seleção.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's always so good at City, and I always hated his guts in the Brazil national team.
Yeah.
Like never understood why he was always he was a guaranteed starter for a couple of years there. But anyway, if you guys have anything to add, because I'm probably gonna take like 5 minutes to put the actual screen for the Sudamericana, so you guys have time.
Is the last thing. I think Atlético Paranaense now with these players coming in, John, I don't know if you agree, but like their starting lineup on any given day, I think can play against anyone at the same level in the country. I mean, I think their starting lineup is very, very strong, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more debatable if they can do that consistently throughout a whole year.
Agree.
Yeah, but I agree. Any given day, yeah, they're solid.
All right. You guys looking at what I'm looking?
I am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, like looking at the tempo we have right now, we might not get to the Uruguayan league, so I thought I'd click on this actual game because this was actually the first game that Luis Suarez played for Nacional ever since coming back, right? And I think a lot of people were surprised that they lost this game. I remember there was this interview from the Atlético Goianiense captain where he was asked about Luis Suarez, and he was like, "Yeah, we have a problem." Like Atlético Goianiense is not used to playing against strikers like Luis Suarez, right? Like one of the 10 best strikers in the 21st century. I'm not
Greatest goal
saying anything wrong.
scorer in Uruguayan national team history.
There you go. Like Uruguay's won the World Cup twice, right? Like he's a huge, huge player. He's a legend of the game. And he went back to Uruguay, I think earlier than he should have, but like still a great, great, great transfer. I was kind of hoping he went to River Plate. Like I like that link. I like that link very much. But seeing him back at his boyhood club, definitely cool. And Atlético Goianiense is actually a team that's fighting relegation in Brazil. They're in the relegation zone right now. I know they've become a lot better for a couple years now. Atlético Goianiense was very much so one of those yo-yo clubs that went down, went back up. They're more stable now, but it's looking dangerous, and still they're almost in the semifinals of a international competition. What's your take on this game, guys?
So it's definitely the biggest victory in club history. I think I can say that.
Wow.
Comfortably. I think so. I would say so because, like Charlie said, historically, I wouldn't even say they're a yo-yo team. I say historically they've been insignificant And in the past 10 years, they've actually made it to the point where they can occasionally make it up and down between the first and second division. But even the second division used to be like a big deal for them. They're historically the third team of that city, and now they're the second. So, yeah, Charlie, I see you thinking after Goiás and Villanova.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Villanova has been in an absurd crisis, one of the most poorly managed clubs in the country. But that's a discussion for another episode. So that's the context of the team, and all of a sudden they're in Uruguay, in Montevideo, in a packed stadium, and they beat a three-time Libertadores champion, and three-time world champion. So I would say it's the biggest win in the club history, and also, the climate of that game, the atmosphere was of a party. It was of celebration because of Luis Suarez. Luis Suarez didn't start. He actually came in the last 20, maybe 15 minutes of the game. Atletico was actually already winning 1-0 before halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And Suarez didn't do much. Not, I think, to the surprise of anyone. He just came back from a 2-month vacation in Europe. He's severely out of shape, just like anyone else that came back to South America from Europe. So it's going to take him, and I want to say at least 6 weeks, at least, for him to be able to play a full game.
Okay.
So I don't expect Luis Suarez to start the next game against Atlético Goianiense in Brazil. And we'll see what happens. I still think Nacional is a better team. But Atlético Goianiense really, they've really kind of believe in this cause that is the Sul-Americana. I think they kind of gave up on the Brazilian league. I think they've accepted that they can only do well in one tournament at a time. Their roster isn't deep enough, and we're past half of the season in Brazil, and so I think they're putting all their chips in this competition. And I think it's a once in a lifetime chance for them to lift some silverware that's not just a regional tournament.
I would like to say that I disagree that it's the most important win in club history.
I know what you're about to say.
It's a second tier South American competition,
but they've never played the Libertadores.
It's fine. I think that Nacional is also like a team that we give more credit than maybe.
I agree with everything you're saying, but I just don't think Atlético Goianiense has played anything more important.
I don't know. I think the first time they were brought to prominence nationally was when they beat Palmeiras in the Brazilian Cup, or maybe that's more important than a win like this. I don't know. Let's see how the story finishes before, I have that feeling with this. I don't know what's the weirdest thing that you were showing me, Marlie. What's more impressive? If it's Atlético Goianiense in the quarterfinal of the Sul-Americana, that's crazy. If it's them beating Nacional in Uruguay, it's good to see that Kun Agüero was watching his friend Suarez in the stands. But then the other crazy thing for me is how early Suarez took this decision to go to Nacional, right? And I think that this might have a waterfall effect on this generation of players now. You start thinking of what is Cavani going to do? Vidal came to Flamengo. So these guys that are 34, 35, 36, they're starting to find some spots that are more unconventional. And I really do think that it's these guys, after everything that happened in the world, they're you know what, we have enough money. What I want to do for the last 2 years is I want to play somewhere where I live. And it's to give you something that we were debating about this week, John and I, was the story of Recoba. Recoba comes back from Europe. I think he was playing in Greece to play in Danubio, which was the team that he started in. And he played at such a high level, so well with Danubio, that Nacional brought him back, was the team that gave him his first big transfer in Uruguay. And he played for Nacional for 5 more years until he was 42. So I don't know how much more Suarez we could see. It might be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It might be that he plays this 6 months in Nacional, goes back to play somewhere at a high level, and then comes back again. I don't know, but I'm just enjoying it. I watched the whole game. I loved the atmosphere, like John said, and yeah, I'm just excited to see how the second leg is going. And the third and last thing that I was going to mention is Atlético Goianiense also beat Corinthians 2-0 in the Brazilian Cup. So they're in the relegation zone of the Brazilian league, but they've beat Corinthians, which is one of the better teams in the leagues, and they've beat Nacional away from home. So it's crazy what this team is doing. It's crazy, and I'm excited to see where it finishes.
Yeah. The Copa do Brasil, the Brazilian Cup, like where is it? Is it round of 16 right now?
Final as well.
Quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals as well. So they're looking like they're gonna reach the semifinals. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
funky.
I mean, the same way I think there's a solid chance Nacional still pulls off the win in Brazil. I still think there's a very solid chance Corinthians still goes through, even though they're down 2-0.
Yeah. Much bigger club, much better team as well. So absolutely.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and I kind of believe the fairy tale at some point will strike midnight and they go back to being a pumpkin.
All right. Whoever goes through this one, what's the matchup? Is it São Paulo or Ceará, or is it?
Yeah.
All right, Johnny, take it away. You're São Paulo.
Not too much to say. It wasn't an amazing game. São Paulo dominated for the majority of the game with little flashes of Ceará moments in between. Ceará actually hit the post in the first half, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really not much to say about this game. There was a penalty missed by São Paulo by their number 9, which would have given São Paulo a much more comfortable lead. That was very frustrating. I think São Paulo fans. What was that?
Is that Luciano?
Caleri.
Oh, Caleri.
Caleri, yeah, he got an elbow to the face. His cheek was bleeding. They patched it up. He took the penalty and missed. And so the fans, I think, were left the stadium with a sense of we could have left this game with more in our hands. Playing against Ceará in Fortaleza is very tough because massive stadium with very passionate fans and a terrible pitch. The ball doesn't roll. It just bounces around. It's like playing in a pinball machine.
Yeah.
And so that that kind of brings down the level of the whole game. It's tough for a team that's better than Ceará to actually prove themselves better,
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough. I think São Paulo's advantage is very, very marginal. I wouldn't say that it's a comfortable lead at all. And
I remember Fluminense played Ceará. We played Ceará not too long ago, and I thought they were a really organized team. I know they're not doing too well in the league. They're in 14th right now. They can defend really well. It's been tough to defend against Fluminense, and they did a really good job. Like up until I think we scored our first goal in the 30th minute in the second half or something like that. It was a really tough game.
Palmeiras played them in the weekend, and what was supposed to be a comfortable victory ended up being like a eking out, like a 2-1. Like Ceará having one player less and still pressuring Palmeiras so much towards the end that we still got the result. But it's just an organized team that these teams, and I think the same applies for Atlético Goianiense. They know what to do, when they have the ball. They know what to do. They know, as cliche as this sounds, they know their limitations, and they play to their strengths. And with the calendar, we haven't even mentioned that in this conversation for the Brazilian clubs. Palmeiras played its 55th match against Atlético Mineiro in the year. 55th match in the year. We're in August. So with all the
calendar year, yeah, for those who don't know.
Yeah, in the calendar year, in a World Cup year. So everything is kind of leveling itself out. São Paulo has what, John? 13 injuries, 12 injuries.
Yeah. So the São Paulo strategy for this year was to not invest in players that are 5-star players, but get a lot of players that are 3.5. That way you can play multiple tournaments and be pretty much at the same level. instead of being super strong in one tournament and then in the other one you're super weak. But then what ended up happening is that, like Mateo said, at any given point between 8 to 13 injuries at a time. Wow. So the roster isn't deep, and the players, a lot of them are just mediocre in the literal sense of the word, just average players. So it's been rough for everyone in Brazil this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to Deportivo Tachira and Independiente del Valle. Independiente del Valle is a big club in this competition, right?
Yeah, they're tiny team from Ecuador, from the capital Quito, but that got bought by some investors, and they kind of made the team competitive. They reached the Libertadores final in 2016. They won a Copa Sudamericana in 2018, 17 or 18 against Colón. And they've won the Ecuadorian League for the first time last year, ever. But they still play in front of a crowd of like 1,200 people, because historically they're nothing of a team.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but definitely one of the stronger teams of this tournament, aside from the Brazilians. Maybe the strongest team aside from the Brazilians.
Mm-hmm.
And they got an unsurprising win against Tachira away. They scored, I think, in minute 2 or minute 3 off of a mistake by the defense. They got a red card, as you can see there, about 10 minutes into the second half. And then Tachira got a little better, started pressuring. Actually got a goal in the last second of the game that got disallowed by offsides. And I think Tachira's only shot was to get a good result at home in Venezuela. Going to Ecuador down 1-0, I think it's kind of over. Even though they have beaten Santos in Brazil to qualify in the previous round. So, I guess anything could happen, but I don't think lightning's going to strike twice.
Yeah, actually, Santos and Tachira was 2 draws, and Tachira advanced on penalties. But the one kind of fun fact that would be cool to mention about this Independiente del Valle team is that the coach today is an Argentine. He was the assistant of Miguel Ángel Ramírez at Independiente del Valle and at Internacional. So they've kind of continued those coaches.
All right. All right. So the last game is actually it's still the first leg, but Johnny, if you need to take care of your cat, like it's all good. I see that
he's okay. He's behaving. Yeah. So Melgar is the big surprise of this tournament. I think even more than Tachira, because Tachira is there because they finished 3rd in the group stage of the Libertadores. But Tachira actually made it out of their group in the Sudamericana, group with Cuiabá, Racing, and River Plate from Uruguay. Those were the 4 teams. It was only the first team that goes through. They made it, finished first. And now they're here, a team from Peru. Peruvian teams that, don't get me wrong, they're not great, but they're not as bad as they perform in international tournaments usually. But Melgar is actually representing the country with some dignity. And obviously we're not watching this game, but Inter got a red card, 20 minutes left. If they get a win, I guess the miracle could happen. Even though in the previous round, Inter lost 2-0 against Colo-Colo in Chile and then turned it around and won 4-1 in Brazil. But Melgar is the last standing Peruvian in this tournament. I think anyone who's a neutral fan and just wants to see the smallest teams go forward and they want to see chaos, Melgar is your team. Even a tie in Peru, honestly, isn't a bad result because the difference between the teams is so massive.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I would agree. Do you agree as well?
Which, by the way, if Melgar goes through, then we would have either Melgar, Independiente del Valle, or Tachira in the final, which is kind of crazy to think about. And any of those 3 teams would be a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Do you still feel like São Paulo and Inter are probably favorites to win the competition, right?
Some people were even saying that this São Paulo Ceará right now was almost a final, that whoever won this game would go on to win it all. Ceará, let's not forget, not only are they undefeated, they've won every single game. That's 8 games, 8 wins. Well, until yesterday. 8 games, 8 wins. So, definitely contender.
But São Paulo also has like a crazy impressive record at home in like knockout matches recently, and like matches and just in general. So they were able to beat Ceará, and it's why I think that game is also wide open because anything could happen in that second leg too. Like it's not crazy to think Ceará wins 1-0, 3-0, or that São Paulo wins 4-0. Like anything can happen. It's crazy.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, technically we have 15 minutes left. I'm assuming we're gonna go over the hour mark. Maddie, once again, I'm sorry, you're probably used to it
We
by
can
now.
do Brazil and Argentina and leave the other 8 countries for the next episode.
That's probably what's gonna happen. So okay, guys, welcome to Brazil. This is how the Brazilian league's looking right now. It's also the simplest one to look at, right? So it's good that we're touching on it now. As you can see, Palmeiras, that's Mateo's favorite club, in first, sitting comfortably in first. We've spoken about Corinthians as well in second. Fluminense, I mean, it's a surprise, right, to see us in third. I know I've been watching our game, so I'm not that surprised. Like we've been playing well, but it's definitely the unexpected team in that front bunch there. But I don't know whoever wants to start. Like what first comments on the Brasileirão? Like there's a lot to talk about here.
I think Mateo earned this one.
Fluminense, to start off with Fluminense, let's say, Charlie, I think is the best team to watch today in Brazil. Even better than Flamengo, better than Palmeiras. It's just a team that you want to sit down and watch. Even though John wants to bite his tongue as I say this because he's a Fernando Diniz hater. But I mean, I love seeing him do well. I
do too.
I love seeing Fluminense because of their kind of in like values. They invest a lot in their youth system. They develop a lot of players. Like you say this as a joke, but like every time you play Fluminense or Santos, like I don't recognize half of the players, and the team is always doing well. You know, like it's always doing well, and it's always like a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, 18-year-old. So it's been a treat to watch. I think we were speaking of the calendar. I think you can't not mention the match calendar and how heavy it is in Brazil when you talk about this tournament. Fluminense was eliminated from the Libertadores and Sul-Americana in dramatic fashion first, and then in like humiliating fashion second. And then they lost also, and then that gave them kind of 3 weeks to plan and play. So now they're in the cup and they're in the league and they're doing well. But to go back to the league, Palmeiras leads. It looks comfortably. It hasn't seemed comfortably as a fan. I think they've been suffering for the last 20 matches. It's been tough. Palmeiras has definitely been able to play better and do better. But recently, I'd say in the last 6-7 games, they've been just able to grind out results, and not playing the best form, but winning those games. And at the end of the day, that's what wins you this tournament, right? I strongly believe, and I'll take this to my grave, the Brazilian championship is the hardest championship to win in the entire world. But like,
oh yeah,
more than Libertadores, more than anything else, it's the hardest tournament to win in the world. And this year in particular, because of all the things some of the things we've mentioned, it's going to be the hardest one. John and I, before the tournament started, we've been saying, I think this is going to be most likely, unless a team, wins the next 18 games, it's going to be a champion with low 70s points or mid 70s, So that's the context of Palmeiras. And then the context of Corinthians is also very similar, but it's a squad that's been stretched thin. It's the team. I think, John, the parallel that we can make is like Barcelona. It's a team that spends, and we don't know how they spend, where the money comes from. So they have a stacked team that they've built in the last 3 months, and they're hanging on. They're in second. We don't really know how they're still there, but they're still in second. They're still in the Libertadores and in the Cup, even though they have 2-0 disadvantages. And yeah, I think that's it for those top three. The two rivals, and then Fluminense, which is, I think, if you guys want to watch just a game next week, watch a Fluminense game. It's beautiful to watch. Watch me jinx it now.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. But it has been fun. It has been really fantastic, and I agree with you. guys, you probably don't know Fernando Diniz. You have very little reason to, if you're not Brazilian. But he's this manager. Like he always begins his jobs. Like it's exciting to see, right? Like he's got this really like fancy looking football. The teams tend to pass the ball really well. Like I don't know what happens to the teams, and like they start getting like over 90% passing accuracy every single game. Like they dominate games, but usually within like 5 or 6 months, it all goes to shit. I don't have the depth to explain why that
Oh,
happens.
I survived a year and a half of Fernando Diniz, so I think I'm I'm well versed in the subject.
Go
Now,
ahead.
the last game Fluminense had against Santos, I think, tells you everything you have to know about him. I think it showed all his strengths and all his weaknesses. So what happened was Santos, far weaker team, is playing at home and gets a lucky goal. What I consider a lucky goal. The ball like ricocheted off someone else, hit like the back of the head of a defender, goes in.
Yeah.
What Fernando Diniz does at halftime is he takes off all of the center backs. So now his back line is a right back, a left back, and a defensive mid. There's no center backs in his team. Like that's the kind of manager he is. If it works, Fluminense ties the game, turns the game around, and then at 2-1, he doesn't stop. He, with the same formation, with the same players, tries to go after the third goal. Instead of saying, I'm playing away, I have the lead, there's 20 minutes left, maybe I should have one center back on the field. Doesn't do that. Santos scores on a counter attack, which means that regardless of formation, just like in terms of strategy, Fluminense was also like everyone like past midfield, left all the room behind them. One quick counter attack, and Santos tied the game. Yeah. So I think that tells you everything you have to know about Fernando Diniz. Sometimes he's a crazy genius, but I think he still needs to sometimes just to be more pragmatic, to say, hey, we have the win, we're away from home, like let me just sit back a little bit,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I remember you're probably gonna remember this game because it was a really fun one. I think it was Brazilian Cup before Cruzeiro went to like before this happened to them. I think it was the quarterfinals or the semifinals. Fluminense was behind. It's the game where João Pedro, who plays for Watford now, scored that beautiful bicycle kick. At one point, Fluminense had 7 attackers playing. I think Caio Henrique, really good left back, plays for Monaco right now. Like he was our most defensive player. We had like one DM, an offensive mid, and then 7 attackers.
Yeah,
and it almost worked.
And I also want to add this. Everything I described, this is conservative Fernando Diniz. This is him not being extremist in his views, because when he used to coach São Paulo, he was so obsessed with having a numerical superiority over your opponent in a certain section of the field that São Paulo's number 9 used to go on a goal kick, used to go back into São Paulo's own box to start the play with the goalie. So with Luciano, and so Luciano would, cross the field 90 meters and start the play. That way, São Paulo had a player more than the opposing team as they were constructing the play and moving up the field, which is insane. I thought that was completely insane. But that's all to say that I feel like he's headed towards a path where it seems like he's letting go of some of his most extremist views, and I think that's a good thing.
All right. Well, what about we need to talk about the rest of the competition too, right? Like what's it look? Do you guys feel like the champion's gonna come out of one of these three teams, or do you still feel like Flamengo could probably reach the level and try to compete for the title as well?
Maybe Mateo, I don't know what you think, but in my mind, if there's anyone that can take this title away from Palmeiras, it's Flamengo.
I agree, and I think that the next month, I think, will be crucial to define kind of where this season is going to go, not only because of the matchups, but also because of, let's see what happens in the other cup competitions. Because if Flamengo advances in both cup competitions, odds are is that they kind of leave the Brazilian Championship to the side. between Palmeiras and Atletico, who's eliminated, we only have one tournament to play. So I think when we talk about the rest, I think it's important to highlight Atlético Paranaense in fourth. Like they're there for a reason. They're one of the two teams that were able to beat Palmeiras. The first one was Ceará. We're talking about impressive Ceará. And then Flamengo has been, since changing their coach, has been catching fire. They've won every game. You see there in the thing you have here is four wins in a row. Internacional has been kind of ups and downs, but besides that, I think the thing to highlight here is that in the middle of this madness, there's no order. There's nothing. There's almost nothing to explain because it's so crazy that you can't really. How do you explain Atlético Mineiro in seventh?
It's so poor. Look at the results. Yeah, it's crazy.
After you see a game like last night, and then you look at them in seventh, or Atlético Goianiense in 17th, but then beating Nacional in Uruguay. They're 19th even, so even worse.
Oh yeah, 19th.
Or Fortaleza, who was in fifth or fourth last year, is now in the relegation zone. Played the Libertadores for the first time in their history. So it's such a hard league, and it's crazy how streaks are, right? Like if you get into a bad streak, a bad vibe, it's hard to get out of it. And one thing that I think is crazy to look at is like look at São Paulo's form, or Botafogo's form. They're teams that are in mid-table, but they haven't really won games recently. But they're drawing, and then they win a game, and they draw, and then they stay there. What does that mean? That means that the tournament is so hard, it's so difficult that these teams that are in the middle of the table or underneath, it's hard to break through to that next level unless you win 4, 5, 6 games in a row. And that's what Flamengo did, and that's why Flamengo I think is probably. Besides Corinthians, I think the only team that can take this title away from Palmeiras.
It's wow. I'm gonna dare disagree with both of you guys. I'm probably wrong, but just looking at it, like the way Palmeiras is so efficient, seeing them because it's a 9-point difference right now, 18 games to go, so that means Flamengo needs to pick up a point beyond Palmeiras every 2 games. I feel like that's a lot. I know it's still a lot of games to go,
but I truly believe that there's a higher chance of that happening than Corinthians, for example, getting 4 points back.
No, I agree with that. If I was to place money on it, I'm not, never have. But if I was to, I'd probably put Flamengo in second. I think that's how the league's going to finish.
Yeah, we're starting this discussion with the assumption that Palmeiras is by far favorited at this point, not only because of the points, but because of how they're playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Most wins, best attack, best defense, best goal difference, best everything. I don't think there's one relevant statistic that they're not number one in. So
best player, best defender, but it's still best manager. Yeah, best goalie.
Statistic to that. There's one no one feels like this team is dominating that much, the eye test wise, you look and Palmeiras goes play Ceará, they play for 40 minutes with one man more and they struggle because everything is like we were saying, is so there's so much equilibrium right now.
Yeah, but no one's struggling and winning the way Palmeiras is.
Yes, I agree. All that to say, I think is also Palmeiras is titled to lose at this point now. It got to a point where okay, it's 4 points against Corinthians, but you really doubt that Corinthians is going to be able to keep up the pace, and they play next week, not this week, next week. So that's why I say that this whole month is going to say a lot. Palmeiras plays Flamengo as well after Corinthians, so and then they play Fluminense. So it's going to after this month, I think we'll kind of know in what direction this is going.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, we definitely need to move on to the Argentinian league, but anything else noteworthy here?
Honestly, anyone from Goiás down could possibly get relegated.
I agree. It's the one that I doubt stays up is Juventude. I know it's easy to say that if they're in 20th, but they're definitely one of the weakest sides in the league. They're at 16 points now, so getting 5 points back when you're that crap, like it's tough.
I would go
So
as far as saying Juventude, Atlético Goianiense, and Fortaleza are virtually relegated already.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
But I might be going a little too far, but that's what I believe. I think there's only one more spot left for salvation.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
feel like a lot.
I
Go
think
ahead.
Curitiba's still gonna go down. I think they'll grab one of those. Avaí is gonna fight till the end, and then Ceará depends a lot on what's gonna happen. I think now in this next game against São Paulo to see where they focus. But the romantic in me still wants Fortaleza to escape, man. Like I don't want the fairy tale to
I
end.
do too. I do too. Yeah, I don't want them to go down. I kind of don't want Atlético Goianiense to go down either. The Dragon,
I
like
think
it's
if they go down, it only gives you more makes you value even more what they did last year. It's kind of like the year after Leicester won the Premier League, they almost got relegated, or for a big chunk of the league, it looks like they were fighting against relegation, and people
that's
didn't
because
want
it
them to
was
get
their first
relegated.
season
But I
back,
always thought
right?
like if they get relegated, that's gonna make their Premier League win like 10 times even crazier.
Yeah,
But
true.
but yeah. Charlie,
But
as you open the Argentinian league table, I'm going to feed the cat because he's going crazy. I'll be right back.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Mateo, if you want to say anything about the Brazilian league while I'm taking my time to put the clausura or apertura here, I don't know like which one's happening right now,
I think the last thing
but
that would be interesting to mention is Botafogo and how disappointing they've been given the takeover. They're owned, for those that don't know, they're owned by the same owner of Crystal Palace, the same owner of Olympique Lyon. He bought Botafogo outright, and he brought in a lot of players, spending a lot of money, taking players away from top teams in the country, and the results have been just mediocre in the literal sense of the word. They're in like 12th or 11th. So yeah,
yeah,
it's
disappointing all 15 of their fans.
yeah, disappointing.
But yeah, it's John Texter is the name of that owner, by the way, and it was definitely like I remember this was I thought it was so ridiculous. Like I'm sorry, like I'm assuming the girl's not gonna be watching this, but I remember like this girl crying when meeting John Texter as if he was like Botafogo's hero. Like that's an owner that just bought the club. 1 year before that, he had no idea what Botafogo was. Like
Yeah,
he made a business decision to buy a Brazilian club, and then this girl cries because the last time Botafogo was actually relevant was in '95.
yeah,
That's why like people are crying now because of an owner. But they
yeah.
they are gonna get better, and I'm so afraid as a Fluminense fan that we're the only one that I mean Flamengo doesn't have an owner in the horizon either, but they're massive. They have over 30 million fans and all that. But Vasco's looking like it's gonna get bought by the Genoa guys. Fluminense, like there's no talks of anything like that. We're an academy team and that's it. Like we have our academy, one of the best in the world, but that's it. So I'm so afraid that we're gonna become the fourth biggest in Rio. Like that scares the crap out of me.
No,
But
I don't
anyway,
know. Yeah.
we've moved on from that. Let's talk about where do you want me to click, guys? Like this. No, well, the second phase, the clausura is actually
So
like
this
we've
is
seen enough
so,
games, right?
so the format this year is one league. You play people. Well, yeah, you play people once, and then the champion is whoever's in first, right, John?
Yeah, simple as that.
Simple as that. And then this has been, I don't know, I've followed very lightly. I know that Tucumán is doing really well, and like all their games, packed games, like everyone's going really behind the team. But besides that, I think it's great to highlight Platense in sixth. Being a team that stayed in the second and third division for so long. It's a kind of a cult team in Argentina. I'm not gonna remember right now, but they've like brought up a lot of like no well-known players have come from Platense, and it's like a little affluent neighborhood, so they're a little bit like arrogant type of like clubs. So it's cool to see them. Their biggest rivalry is against Tigre. They hadn't played each other in like years and years because they were in different divisions. Platense was, I think, in second or third at the time, and Tigre beat them 3-0. So it's like those little rivalries in Argentina that you get to see now that this tournament. John, don't you put your ears like that. That now that Argentina has a more expanded tournament than usual. I think it's 23 or 24 teams. You get to see these like cult or these like really hip like clásicos that you wouldn't see in any other editions in years. And then I think the biggest thing is how Boca has been underperforming, and then River is just in this weird limbo with Gallardo and what's happening right now. And then you have to scroll even more. You have to scroll down, Charlie, to find Talleres and
Vélez.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, look at them. Talleres and
25th
Vélez.
and 26th, 2 Copa Libertadores quarterfinalists. That's why that's why South America is in my mind way more entertaining than in Europe, because you'll never find a Champions League quarterfinalist in 25th out of 28 teams.
No.
It just doesn't exist.
I mean, you're never gonna see a team in Europe place 25th anyway, right? Like that's not gonna happen first division
17th
football.
out of 20, or like like never.
I'm just gonna jump in really quickly here because, well, John, if you remember exactly what stream it was, I don't remember, but not too long ago. When I say not too long ago, it's probably like 4 months ago. But in his stream, Johnny explained to us how Argentina is the only country that actually had, like, they decided what makes a team big, what makes a team medium, and let me ask you this: between the first 10 teams there, how many medium and how many big clubs are there? Because I'm assuming it's like one or two.
Two big clubs, Racing and San Lorenzo.
Yeah.
4th and 10th. And the only medium club is Huracan. The rest are all small.
Argentinos
There
you
you
would
go.
consider small?
I don't know if they made it like in that like actual like definition of that time. That would like like I don't know if they reached that criteria. Today, I think people look at Argentinos Juniors as like a medium-sized team because they've been a great academy, right? A lot of amazing players, including this one guy. You guys might have heard of him called Maradona. Came out of there, so
I might have.
yeah. Right. This other kind of well-known player called Riquelme also came out of there. So, yeah. I would say those two. The rest, either small teams from the countryside or like neighborhood teams from the capital.
Yeah, and
No,
it's
I miss Riquelme. He's probably my favorite Argentinian player ever, after Conca, of course. But I loved Riquelme. I loved him. Such a good player. But anyway, go ahead, Mateo.
No, it's so cool to see some of these storylines. Like Tucumán, a team from a different region in Argentina that. They've played. I remember them playing against Palmeiras in the Copa Libertadores being such a hard match. But people from Tucumán are known as like harder people. Like it's similar to like our gauchos.
Yeah.
And then you have Gimnasia in second, and Gimnasia I think is the Ponte Preta of Argentina. So to see them in second, close to winning something, is crazy. And then you have these teams like Patronato just beat Boca 3-0, Unión de Santa Fe, Platense, Huracan. Like it's really cool to see these teams playing in first division and also being competitive. Boca and River are in 12th and 13th, and they've been terrible. They've been really, really, really bad. So it's finally good to see, number one, a sane and normal league in Argentina after what, like 2 or 3 years. And now we get to see kind of these really cool storylines, and we get to see. Unfortunately, I think that the economical crisis in that country, has kind of leveled the playing field a little bit as well. Because the greatest players from even medium teams are now leaving for Brazil or leaving for Mexico or leaving for the U.S. at an earlier age than ever. So it's kind of everybody's there is what's left. You look at Boca's squad, looks average, like looks average. So I think the economical and political situation in Argentina is also affecting the league, which is kind of leveled the playing field as well.
Yeah, I want to throw a statistic out there that I was looking at the other day to prove Mateo's point. Well, it's actually sort of a different point. It's more to highlight the difference between Brazil and the rest of the continent. The Argentinian Cup winner, the prize money for the Argentinian Cup is $500,000.
Wow.
For the Brazilian Cup, it's 12 million. That's 24 times greater. And we're talking about the two biggest countries in Latin America. So imagine what the difference is between Brazil and Peru, Brazil and Venezuela, Brazil and Paraguay. If Brazil's cup gives you 24 times more money than the second richest country. It's absolutely insane. And that's why we see a quarterfinal of the Libertadores with 4 Brazilian teams and a Copa Sudamericana with 4 Brazilian teams.
It's kind of sad to see that, right? Like, even though we don't hate the fact that Brazilian clubs are doing well and they're like, we're most likely going to stay good within the continent. Like, it's I don't see anything happening that's going to disrupt that. But still, River Plate and Boca, in my eyes, like, they're the Real Madrid and the Barcelona of the continent. Like, they truly
Boca
are.
and Real Madrid definitely live in islands within the Argentinian context. While everyone's swimming in the same ocean, Boca and River they're a different thing. Both of them together represent 80% of soccer fans in the country.
Yeah, I've made that comparison before, and I feel like I was really smart in saying that the Brazilian league is sort of like the Premier League, where you have a couple of really big clubs, and then you have La Liga in Argentina, where you have those two massive clubs that might very well be more famous than any Brazilian clubs outside of the country.
Yeah. I think it's a good comparison for those two. Except I would say there's like 3 or 4 Atlético de Madrid.
Okay,
so any given year that River and Boca don't do well, there's at least 3 or 4 below them that can kind of step up. And that's what makes this season even crazier, because Boca and River aren't doing well, and it's none of the next like 3 or 4 big teams that are leading. It's Tucumán that I think 12 years ago no one knew existed.
I still don't. So it's awesome. Union Santa Fe is a team that I'm not supposed to like, right? Like, that's a team that got Fluminense out of the Sudamericana.
That's the one you hate, yeah.
Yeah, I hate a lot of clubs by now. So, guys, I always forget to do this. I should, like, within the first 10 minutes, I'm supposed to say, guys, watch till the very end, because we're going to have a special promo for you at their website. I always forget to do that. Johnny, you can remind me. Not putting the blame on you, it's my fault. But if I'm messing up, you can go ahead and correct me.
I completely forgot as well, to be honest. It's on me as well.
Do you guys have anything else to say about the Argentinian league? Because I think I'm going to move on to Golazo Kids now.
I don't know if Mateo wants to say. I just want to wrap up by saying that their relegation, like most of the rest of South America outside of Brazil, works on an aggregate table of the past 3 seasons. And so right now, even though they're not the bottom 2, the bottom 2 in the aggregate table that would get relegated are Patronato, that, as we can see, are actually having a pretty good season, but the previous 2 have been terrible, and Aldo Civi.
Wait, Patronato's in 8th, and they're probably going to get relegated?
Like, almost, yeah, they're actually dead last in the aggregate table. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, that's how NLCP is actually been terrible, and that's how you get situations of a team like qualifying for a Sudamericana or Libertadores and getting relegated the same year.
Yeah, that's funky.
But that's it for me.
So, no, all good. No, I mean, here in the US, you can watch this in either Paramount or ViX. So I've been like watching some games here and there. So like. Independiente with their year and years long struggle. Banfield just lost a really good player to São Paulo right now, apparently. Nothing, just keep an eye. I mean, there's so many games still in this. I mean, Boca or River could well wake up and end up taking this. So let's keep an eye.
How many more games? Does it everyone play everyone here?
Yeah, everyone plays each other once.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's going to be
27
27 rounds. Yeah, so 16 more games. Yeah, could happen. Still 10 points, not that much. So River Plate and Boca could still. But like, is it likely for Boca to do anything like that? Because you said they have
No,
a really average team right now. Yeah,
there's
I think it's
rumors
more likely for River Plate
yeah, I
than
was
that
gonna
Boca.
gonna say then.
there's rumors that
Right.
Cavani will go to Boca. So let's see what happens. I doubt it.
I do too, but it makes sense, doesn't it? Like it's
It does.
something that you like. We make it make more sense within our heads because we want it to happen. Like a huge Uruguayan player, like playing for Boca, playing for River, it just makes sense. I just don't want him to go to Flamengo or Corinthians or Atletico or Palmeiras, but it's not like that's actually Palmeiras' style of business, right? Like,
No,
so that
no.
wasn't gonna happen anyway.
I think one thing Boca can give a player like that few clubs in South America do at that level is to give a player like a god status and like literally becomes literally a god walking amongst men. And Boca
Yeah.
really makes you feel that way, the way
Yeah.
that few clubs in South America do.
Yeah. It's I mean my biggest dream outside of being a club fan, right? Because I am a Fluminense and an Arsenal fan, but just as a football fan, my biggest dream is to watch a Borussia Dortmund game in their stadium. But the second is probably going to La Bombonera, mate. Like that's if you guys never heard of the La Bombonera, if you've never seen highlights from that, just watch any highlights of any game in La Bombonera. It's freaking
Yeah.
crazy, mate.
Throw La
Like
Bombonera on YouTube.
yeah,
And the
it's
first 30 seconds of any video you click on will give you goosebumps.
exactly. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's kind of scary as well, but it's crazy. Like that adrenaline there. Like it's I envy Boca for sure. Like it's one fun club to support. But anyway, guys, we're done with all the information. We're gonna go ahead and show Golazo Kits. This time I actually came prepared. I have the promo code written down. Like I'm trying to act a bit more professional, but I did forget to mention it when I should have. But anyway, just gonna. You always start with Flamengo, mate. I love the website, but I hate the algorithm, mate. I gotta be honest. I always
And
see Flamengo right in my face when I click on Brazil, and that's not something that makes me
switch
happy.
up best selling to new to old, and then that'll switch it up.
All right, so new to old, perfect.
There you go.
Aha, awesome. So guys, I'm gonna let them talk for a lot more, but yeah, it's back. This is their website. They ship football paraphernalia, mainly jerseys, but also like jackets, everything, any football accessory. They ship worldwide. You can find stuff from like the randomest clubs ever. They have some retro stuff that's so freaking cool. And I always say this, I'm so proud to have this partnership. It was kind of easy to do. Johnny's my friend, but still, it's something that we pride ourselves here. So yeah, guys, take it away. I'm gonna show the promo code here.
Yeah, so this is my store along with Mateo. Like Charlie said, soccer paraphernalia, mainly jerseys, but anything we can get our hands on. Everything authentic, everything original, everything of that era. And there's things, again, like Charlie said, from all over the world. The other day, someone bought a Vietnam national team jersey from us. We have Slovenia, we have Cuba, we have third division Guatemalan teams, and that's not an exaggeration. We really do. So there's something for everyone. Kids, women's jerseys. We have soccer balls. So yeah, just browse around. It's really fun. It's not your typical soccer store. We really give equal value to every club, which is something we truly believe in.
Ooh, okay, some funky.
Yeah,
Yo,
I don't
Fluminense
know that.
lost the final with this one.
Yeah,
I
that's the
remember
one.
that.
And
I
so yeah,
remember
there's
that
a
play.
promo code Feed Us South for South America. You guys can use it at checkout, and it'll give you 15% off. And yeah, we ship worldwide. We actually just got a new batch of like 100 jerseys that are incredible. We still haven't added them to the website, but keep an eye out. And yeah, that's about it. I don't know, Mateo wants to add anything else.
GolazoKids.com, Golazo with a C, GolacoKids.com. Go check us out, and thank you for giving us this platform, Charlie.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram as well, right here. On Instagram, we post some cool stuff as well as new arrivals and stuff like that, so you can stay updated with what's coming in.
Yeah,
absolutely. And thank you, guys. The link's in the description, by the way, if you didn't catch it. It's a simple website, so golacokits.com, but it is in the description of the video, so you can find it really easily. And yeah, guys, thank you so much.
Real quick, sorry, Charlie. One last thing. We just moved into a new store. So if you're in South Florida, in the Miami area, stop by. It's a really cool place. You can see everything in person. Everything's there on display. And obviously, if you want to talk soccer, me and Mateo will uncontrollably get into that conversation.
So, they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves.
Clearly.
Absolutely no control.
Yo, when I get to Miami at some point, I'm assuming next year I'm gonna make a trip there at some point because I love it. It's my favorite city in the world. We gotta do a local stream, right? Like one from
that would be so much fun. Yeah.
That could be really cool. It's in the future, guys. It's gonna happen at some point. But guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. Over 80 minutes of stream now. Maddie's gonna freaking murder me tomorrow, but it was worth it. Really fun show. Stay tuned. 2 weeks from now, we're gonna be talking about some transfers. We might touch on the other 8 leagues that we didn't have the time to do tonight. But yeah, do follow me as well on. Well, this is my Twitter and this is my Instagram here. On Instagram, you'll find my acting stuff. You're not gonna find any football related stuff, but like if you like me, you might as well. I like the pictures that I've been posting there. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next time. We're back on Monday with Gunners from All Corners. Maddie might do a stream this weekend as well. Guys, thank you once again, my amigos. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.